Hey there and welcome. I am going to be walking you through a few tips and tricks in Excel that I use as a teacher to analyze and track my students' data. Everything I'm going to show you can be used in Numbers or Google Sheets if you prefer, but you'll see from my example that I'm using Excel. Please take or leave any bits of this that you think is too much work or just too extra and not worth the benefit. The last thing I want to do is create extra work for you as the teacher because you already have a lot that you're dealing with. So first things first, I've got a blank sheet here. I'm going to give myself a class name, and here's just try and make this a bit bigger or whatever so it's easy to see. You don't want to be looking in the wrong class and then realize, oh no, I'm in the wrong class. And then you want to get your students' names. So this, I'll probably just fast forward through real quick. Okay, now once you've got your students entered, just going to give yourself a little bit of formatting. This is going to end up being our master sheet where all their scores are going to be recorded here. I've talked to a few teachers. Some only like to record their test scores. If you just want to use this for test scores, that's great. Then you're going to see, okay, chapter 1 test here, chapter 2 test here, and so on. But for me, I like to record all my student data because I actually grade all their homework assignments by the question, so it's not just for completion. But however you want to use this, you feel free. So I'm going to give this a name, master sheet, just so I know this is the tab that's going to have all my information here. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to want to make a new tab, and this I'm just going to call chapter 1. And the way I like to set this up is I like to create a tab for each of my chapters. So I'll just do 2 right now. And I'm going to set them up in the same way. In this tab, I'm going to be putting in all my assignments for a given chapter. So the first assignment I might have, we'll just call this homework 1. Okay, and I'm going to grab my student names, so I'll just copy these down and paste them in there. The way if you want to just do a really simple homework assignment, let's say you have a worksheet that has 10 questions. So I'm just going to call this worksheet and try to abbreviate that, make it easier on myself. And it's out of 10 questions. So I'm going to put a little 10 there. So that I can come back to it in my formula here in just a second. So to set this up, I'm going to convert this to a percent. The reason I like to convert to percents is because the current system I'm using has no decimal points. So I couldn't give somebody like a 8.5 out of 9. That 0.5 would be not counted, but I want them to get half points if they are deserving of half points. So I always convert my scores into decimal. That way I'm giving them, I'm not having to deal with rounding things. So essentially this is going to be their total right here. And if you want to add a little bit of like to make this easier on yourself, you can say, okay, this is my student names. You can copy down a worksheet, put it here, and this is going to be total. Now, student A, his score is going to go right here, and his total is going to be recorded here. So I'm going to have this number divided by this number, but I need this number to stay, and I'm going to copy this formula down. It'll be the same for everybody. So in Excel, it will copy and move all the cells exactly how I have moved the dragged cell, if I'm dragging this cell down. So the blue one I want to drag down, but the red one I actually need to stay in place. So to keep it from moving, you're going to put dollar signs in front of the column and the number to lock the column and row. To do that quickly, you can press F4, and I believe that works on both Mac and Windows, and you'll see it automatically adds the dollar signs for me. So go ahead and enter there, and I'm going to drag this down. Okay, now let's just pretend in some random numbers for these guys, just making it actually not random numbers, just making whatever their scores would be, and you can see it's converting to percent here. If it's not coming up as a percent, you may have to just toggle the settings here or whatever type of data you're trying to sort this by. Okay, so now here are these are like their raw scores from the worksheet, and this would be their percent. Now I want this to read over in our master sheet. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit enter equals, and now it's looking for a formula. I'm going to just grab this name. Since I called it homework 1, now that's appearing here. And then I want this to drag down. Now you can do this with an array formula, or you can do this with so just the same method we used for the naming convention. So I'm going to hit equals and go to this score, hit enter, and I can drag that down and it will get all of those scores there. But if you want to be a little bit more fancy so that I don't accidentally, oh no, delete that one and then it's gone forever, you can actually type this in using an array formula. So you're going to start with the first cell, you get equals, and I'm going to grab this first one, but then I'm going to drag this down, and I want it to copy all the way down to C19. So I'll hit C19, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Control Shift Enter. Now what Control Shift Enter does is it pastes an array formula. So you can see these all have the same formulas. And the way it's pasted in allows me now, if I try and delete this, nothing's happening. So now these scores are like locked in. Now if I deleted this first formula, then I would lose all this information here. But I like to use array formulas here. It's a little bit safer. That way I know, okay, I'm not editing scores here. This is only for viewing scores. So I can come back into chapter 1, and if, oh no, I recorded student H's score wrong, should actually be 90, then it's changing here, it's also changing here, and you only have to enter it one time. Okay, so let's get a few more assignments in. I'll just try and do this quickly. I'm going to just copy this. Okay, now I've got a few more assignments. Let me rename these. And I just copied the whole assignment of assignment 1. Now if this is another homework assignment, I can keep the formatting the same, but maybe I have a new total. Maybe this total should actually be, maybe there are 15 questions instead of 10. Let me get some other random numbers in here. Okay, and now you'll notice this formula did not drag down. It's still copying this one up here. So if you want to just move that, you can actually just drag that, make sure it still has the dollar signs so that it will copy down, and I'm going to copy this all the way down for that new assignment. Okay, so now homework 2 is ready to go. Let's go ahead and load that into our master sheet, same way that we did before. Percent, so I'll just change that, there we go. Okay, now we've got homework 1 and 2 formatting really, really nicely. Sometimes I like to put in an average column, and I like to give this another color so that I can see it clearly. Maybe let's just do blue or something if you want to throw in another color so that you know, okay, these are not my students' scores. This I'm going to hit average, and if you're not familiar with Excel formulas, you can just start typing it and it should try to guess the formula that you want. So here I've got average, and I'm going to select the average of these, and I'm going to hit enter, and now I've got the average score of this this row here, or this column I should say, and I'm just going to drag this over. We'll give it some space, and you can see it's going to auto calculate the average. These it's showing an error because, well, it doesn't have any information here. And let's go ahead and add another assignment so that we can change that. Now I've done 2 homeworks. Let's throw in a quiz. However you like to format your quizzes. And let's make this a little bit more interesting. I'm going to go ahead and delete this and this for now. And sometimes I like to do multiple assignments in multiple parts to an assignment. So this is going to go in as 1 grade, but I'm actually going to have 2 parts. So I'm going to have a quiz like worksheet that's going to have, you know, maybe 5 questions. Maybe I'll put the total here, and then I'm also going to have, let's put a name for this. I'm also going to have maybe a reflection that they have to write. Okay, and however you want to grade this is up to you. But now that I have 2 parts to this 1 grade, I need another total column. And the way this total will calculate is I'm going to give 50% of the grade to the quiz, and I'm going to give 50% of the grade to this reflection. And since I'm not an English teacher, I'm just going to be grading for completion on that reflection. So they've got to do the questions on the quiz, and then they've got to write the reflection. I'll grade the quiz, but the reflection, I'm just checking, did they complete it? So my total will be this value, again, divided by, let's say there's only 5 questions, so I'm going to divide by that number. Again, I don't want that formula to move, so I'm going to hit F4 to get my dollar signs up. And I'm going to multiply this by 0.5 because I only want it worth 50% of the assignment. Now to make sure that this multiplies the correct number, I'm going to put parentheses around that whole expression and multiply by times 0.5. And then I'm going to add another parentheses and multiply this by 0.5. Or however you want to do this. If you've got another thing you're grading, you could add another total up here and change that. But essentially, this part will be the quiz, and it's going to be worth 0.5, and the reflection will be worth 0.5. Enter. Okay, so there's my total. Now, since I made the reflection just a single value, I'm going to put zeros or ones here. So 0 will be they didn't complete it, and 1 will be, okay, they did complete it. But I'm seeing here I've got some formatting left over from where I copied it from, so I'm going to go back to General, and then I can get rid of that percent sign. And let's input some quiz values after I've dragged this down. So let's say the quiz was pretty easy, so I'm getting mostly 4s and 5s. Okay, so you can see now just with the quiz scores, our totals are showing up here, but even if they got all 5 questions correct, they're only getting 50% on this assignment. That's because I haven't looked at the reflections yet. So let's go ahead and put in some reflections. Scores, okay, most of them did the reflection. Okay, just entering some random values there. And now we've got our quiz assignment. So here's the quiz name, and here's our totals, and it actually had these 2 parts. So this is where I would edit my assignment, inputting different grade values. But here are my totals, which I want to show up in my master sheet. So getting some good practice on this. Let's do that one more time. We're going to enter the quiz name here, and then the grades down here. So equals. Okay, great. So our master sheet's looking pretty nice. We've got 3 assignments. Let's go ahead and create a test. So tests are probably the most important piece that you want to have recorded on here because they are summative assessments, and summative assessments allow you to really see how well the students are grasping the content overall, and see if you need to go back and review any sections that they're struggling with. So for a assessment, I'm going to add a couple rows here, and I'm going to give myself a big title so it's really, really clear. Maybe we'll make this yellow, and I'm going to say test 1 just for my name. Okay, now I've got the student names here. I just copied that from our master sheet, and I'm going to put an average here, but now I'm going to title these top parts, and I'm actually going to create a box for each question. So I'm going to call this Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5, and Excel is pretty smart, so you can actually drag these, and let's say we only had 15 questions. Okay, cancel. So now we've got our questions lined up, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give myself a total that will count the number of questions that they got correct. Depending on how you grade your questions, I'm just going to grade this as 0 for they missed the question and 1 for correct. So here in my total column, I'm just going to add them together using a sum function and drag this over and copy this down. Okay, and as I grade my test, then I'd be putting in their values here. So student A, let's say they. Okay, so now you can see we've got our totals here, and what I want to do is I want to take this and convert it to a percent. So this is going to be my raw score. And I've got 15 questions, so I just need to take their total number of correct questions and divide by 15. And if I wanted to, I could put up here, I could put 15, and we could use the method that I did for our homework assignments where we had this value. Let's go ahead and do that so I don't have to type 15 in my formula every time. So let's change this to this value and add some parentheses and drag that down. Okay, so now we've got our raw scores, and depending on how you like to do your tests, this is what we could go ahead and enter in to our master sheet. But sometimes I like to curve my tests, as some of you know. So the method I'm currently using is a square root. So I'm going to title this my curve, and my curve method is very simple. I just take the square root of the raw score. So square root function right there of my raw score, and I drag this down. Now the reason I could go ahead and square root this, but I like to see both so that I know, okay, well, they went from an 80 to an 89. Okay, so that's what my curve is doing. They went from 73 to 86. Some teachers I've seen have added the grading system, so you could put in like A, B, and C and have this actually auto-calculate so you can see, oh, what was the letter change? But I'm not going to include that right now. The next thing I like to do is I like to put in some visual formatting in especially for my tests, so that I can see, okay, do I need to go back and review any content from this test? So if all your questions are weighted the same, so mine are either complete or incomplete, so worth 1, you can actually come up here to conditional formatting, and I like to throw in these data bars. Now what that's going to show me is I can see completed questions or incomplete questions. I can even see partially complete questions. So sometimes I give partial points for questions that they got maybe the process right, and in the final answer they made a small mistake on. This just quickly allows me to see, oh, okay, question 12 we're struggling on. 5 we did okay, but we had some students that missed part of it. 8 was also really tough. That's just visually a great way to go through your tests quickly and see, I need to go over question 12 with them. Maybe that's something that I missed as the teacher to inform them about. Or maybe that's something that they just didn't understand that I really need to review or spend more time on. Another great thing to add to your assessments down here is your average. So I'm going to take the average for each question score. So it's like average these, and I'm going to drag this over. Now, because I'm taking the average from zeros and ones, these are essentially the percents that they would get on a given question as a class. So you can see, okay, question number 6, everybody got that right. So question number 6, my class is at 100%. But question number 8 at 18%. And question 12, 6%. So there's some problem questions I need to work on. And I also like to add some conditional formatting to this so that I can identify those weak questions really, really easily. So you can go to conditional formatting. I'm not going to use data bars this time because I've already got a lot of blue up above. I'm going to go to color icons, and this will give me a scale between red and green, highlighting my lowest scores, my lowest numbers in red, and my highest numbers in green. So since highest is 100, you can see that shows up right away. And now visually I can look at this, and the colors actually pop out at you, and you say, okay, yeah, 6%. Well, question 12, question 8, question 5. Those are the ones I need to look at, and maybe I need to review those. Last but not least, let's go ahead and get these scores here, since I'm going to be curving it, into my master sheet. So we go over here. Let's go ahead and get the name first. Test 1. And let's get our curve scores. Okay, now we got our first chapter up and running.